webinar. We did experience some technical difficulties during the initial live recording. So to ensure that you get the full value of the session, this is a new recording. This webinar is brought to you by Evaluate, the evaluation hub for the Advanced Technological Education Program. We're Evaluate. We work towards an ATE community in which evaluation is valued, systematic, and used to improve the education of technicians in high-tech fields. We do this through engaging the ATE community with information, expertise, and knowledge to advance high-quality evaluation. The slides from this webinar are already on our website. You may also download them by following the link on the right side of your screen, and the recording will be available within a couple of days, and I'll email that directly to you. I'm Samantha Hooker. I'll be the moderator for today's webinar. Brianna Hook-Singletary will be our presenter today. We want to thank Alucci and Val for their help with this webinar and for being presenters during the initial recording. And now I forgot to thank the behind the scenes people. These webinars do require a lot of work behind the scenes, and we appreciate everyone's help. So I would like to thank our members of the Evaluate team, Maureen, Lissa, Megan, and Corey, and our 2 ATE community members who jumped in to help us out with reviewing the webinar, Nikisha and Shaylee. I do want to point out that although we are funded by NSF, we do not speak for them. So any views presented during this webinar are those of the presenters and not necessarily those of the National Science Foundation. Okay, and now I'll hand it over to Brianna.
Thank you, Samantha. I'm so glad to be here today and excited to talk about crafting case studies for your evaluations. For now, we'll turn off our cameras so you can focus on the slides, but don't worry, we'll turn them back on during our question breaks. So, what are case studies? Before we jump in, it's totally normal if you're feeling a little unsure or even overwhelmed about doing a case study as part of your evaluation. You're not alone. Case studies can seem like a lot at first, but the good news is with a clear plan and purpose, they can be a really useful way to understand what's going on, how things are working, and why. So what are case studies again? Case studies are a methodological approach often used alongside other methods to provide deeper insights in an evaluation. Case studies focus on people, groups, or programs and aim to understand the how and the why behind what's happening. Case studies are especially valuable when exploring something in depth within clearly defined boundaries. A boundary is the limit or focus of the study. It defines what will be included and what won't, like who, what, or where you're looking at. Boundaries help keep the study focused and manageable. By offering rich, detailed descriptions, case studies help us better understand the bigger picture. They add important context to your findings and help clarify what's working for whom and under what conditions. Rich descriptions help us get a deeper understanding of a case by drawing from detailed qualitative data such as interviews, observations, focus groups, surveys, and document reviews. In this way, case studies become a form of storytelling with data, bringing together diverse sources of information to paint a full, nuanced picture of people's experiences, actions, and contexts. At its core, a case study tells a detailed story about how something works in real life. What's happening, what's working well, and what challenges are coming up, all within the real-world setting where it takes place. When using storytelling in case study, think of it like a narrative arc, starting with a challenge, showing the actions taken, and ending with a resolution. This approach goes beyond just the numbers by highlighting the human impact behind the data, which provides context that raw numbers alone can't convey. Additionally, storytelling helps with sense-making by illustrating key patterns and lessons, making it easier for decision makers to apply insights to future programs or policies. When you're dealing with complex issues, case studies are really helpful. They let you understand what happened, how it happened, and why, right in the real world setting. Case studies also show how context matters. They help you see local, cultural, and environmental factors and their impact on whether a project succeeds or fails. By looking closely at case studies, you can better understand how a project's actions connect to its intended results, helping you to improve your thinking and assumptions. Case studies are also about learning from real life examples. They give you solid evidence that can help guide decisions and improve projects or policies. Finally, case studies let you track long term impacts, showing how a project affects people over time and whether it's sustainable. Now that we've got a solid understanding of what case studies are and why they can be useful for evaluations, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever used case studies in your evaluation work? If so, what benefits have you noticed? Feel free to go ahead and add your thoughts to the chat. I'm curious to hear about your experiences. All right, so I see that a lot of people today have had some type of experience using case studies. Hearing from diverse perspectives can really help us all see how case studies are being used in various ways. Thank you all for sharing. So, for the rest of our time together today, we'll take a closer look at how to craft effective case studies by strategic selection of cases that align with your evaluation goals. Exploring well defined case study evaluation questions, diverse data collection methods that capture multiple perspectives, careful consideration of ethical standards, and compelling reporting that balances narrative with clear evidence. To ground our discussion, we'll take a look at a hypothetical NSF ATE funded project called the Tech Skills Advanced Manufacturing Initiative. This initiative is based at Summit Valley Community College and aims to improve technician training in advanced manufacturing and industrial automation. The program serves a mix of traditional students, adult learners, and working professionals, and combines an industry informed curriculum with hands on labs and work based learning. The evaluation for this project is focused on understanding how the program's components are working, who they serve best, and where there's room for improvement. Surveys and performance data show strong outcomes overall, but some student groups are seeing especially high retention and job placement rates. Interviews suggest these results may be tied to local employer partnerships and targeted student support strategies. This raises a few key questions, like what parts of the program are driving these results, which strategies are most effective, and what lessons could inform program development or scaling. A case study can help dig into these questions and surface insights that support continuous improvement. So, to get started on the case study of the Tech Skills Advanced Manufacturing Initiative, we first need to think strategically about case selection. The goal is to choose cases that align with your evaluation questions and can generate useful, actionable insights. One of the first things to consider is whether to study a single case or multiple cases. A single case study takes a close look at one specific project or situation. It's a good option when you want to really understand a unique or complex case in depth. For example, you might focus on one cohort in an ATE funded robotics program to see how students engage with the curriculum, use available resources, and prepare for careers in the tech industry. A multiple case study approach looks at more than one case, so you can compare across projects or settings and find patterns. This is helpful when you're aiming to draw broader conclusions. Say you're evaluating an ATE project that developed a curriculum in advanced manufacturing that is used at several schools. You could study how each one implements it, the challenges they face, and the results for students. Considering what we're trying to learn in the evaluation of tech skills, a single case will give us the depth we need to really understand what's working and why. It aligns well with our evaluation goals, helping us explore which components are most effective, who benefits most, and how to improve the program. Now, the question is, how do we decide which case to study? When selecting a case, there are a few points that you may want to consider. First, you may consider the case's alignment to your evaluation questions. Choose a case that helps you answer what you're trying to learn. For example, if your goal is to understand how the tech skills program components are working and who they serve best, selecting a case that focuses on students in the Introduction to Advanced Manufacturing course held on Tuesdays would not be in alignment with your goal. That case is too narrow and might not capture the full range of experiences or reflect the broader program. Looking at a case that follows a cohort of students placed in a specific internship site at local manufacturing companies, where you can see how different program components come together in a real world setting, may be a better match for the needs of your evaluation. This kind of case lets you see how multiple parts of the tech skills program come together in a real world setting, like technical training, mentoring, and job readiness support. You can also observe how students apply what they've learned and what kinds of support they actually use on the job. Next, you may consider the case's potential for insight. This is about looking for a case that could offer a new or meaningful insights. This could be unique, something innovative or different from the norm that might uncover factors we wouldn't have considered otherwise. Or it could be more typical, reflecting a broader or common experience that could help us better understand general trends or challenges within the project. Finally, it will be necessary to consider the feasibility of the case. When selecting a case, you'll need access to relevant data and people, and you want to choose something that's manageable with your available time, resources, and capacity. Now that we've walked through what to consider when selecting a case, it's time to decide which case makes the most sense for tech case skills to study. As the evaluator for the Tech Skills Advanced Manufacturing Initiative, you're trying to understand how students are engaging with hands-on learning and how those experiences are preparing them for careers in advanced manufacturing. You've decided to conduct an in-depth single case study involving students, faculty, project staff, and industry partners. Now we're going to launch a poll. Take a moment to read through the options and select the one you think would make the most appropriate case for this study. The poll should pop up on your screen now. Feel free to make your choice when you're ready. All right, let's take a look at the poll responses together. So, starting with case A, this option identifies the SVCC faculty as the focus of the case. It's true that looking at faculty implementation can give us some insights into the tech skills curriculum and how it's being used in the classroom. But remember, the goal of this evaluation is broader than just the implementation. We're trying to understand how the entire initiative is working, including who it serves best and where there might be opportunities to improve. Case A might give us one piece of the puzzle, but it doesn't really help us see the full picture. So, not quite the best fit for our evaluation needs. Next up, case C. This one suggests examining all students who have participated in tech skills over the past 5 years. Now, while this sounds comprehensive, it's actually too broad for a case study. We'd lose the depth and focus that makes case studies useful in the first place. It would be really difficult to get a detailed understanding of what's working and for whom across such a wide range of experiences, timeframes, and possible variations in program delivery. So again, not the strongest choice here. Case B, however, is the sweet spot. This option focuses on a specific cohort of students currently enrolled in the advanced manufacturing program and participating in tech skills internships. This gives us clear boundaries. We know who we're looking at and what components they're experiencing. It allows us to explore how the initiative is functioning in a real world context while still maintaining a manageable scope. This kind of focused approach helps us get those actionable insights, how things are working for whom, and where there's room to grow. So if you selected case B, well done. That's the best option given our evaluation priorities. So once you've selected your case, the next step is to develop evaluation questions to guide your studying. A clear question is your foundation. It keeps you focused on what you want to learn. It helps ensure the case study actually supports your broader evaluation. You will want to align your case study question to your evaluation goals. Your case study question doesn't have to match your overall evaluation question word for word, but it should clearly connect. That way, the data you collect will actually help answer what matters. For example, if the evaluation purpose is to understand how effective tech skills is at preparing students for careers through hands-on learning, a case study question asking how does faculty collaboration across departments influence curriculum's design in SVCC's general education courses might not be relevant. Instead, looking at how do students in the spring 2025 tech skills cohort at SVCC engage with hands-on lab activities, and in what ways do these experiences contribute to their development of industry relevant technical skills and perceptions of career readiness, may be a better case study evaluation question to ask. Well-defined evaluation case study questions also dig into influencing factors. Case studies are great for exploring what's shaping outcomes, like what factors are helping students succeed or how partnerships are supporting hands-on learning. It helps to break this into two parts. The what, like what was done, what were the results, who was involved, where and when did it happen, and the how, such as how were decisions made, how were actions taken, and what steps were taken to get things done. These questions work together to build an integrated understanding of the case. Finally, it's important to stay flexible. Be ready to adapt your questions or your methods as the study unfolds. Case studies often uncover new information, and it's okay to follow those threads if they still align with your goals. Flexibility isn't a flaw, it's a strength. It helps you to shift your focus as needed when new insights emerge, use different or additional methods if needed, adjust your timeline to explore meaningful findings more deeply, and sorry, and follow the insights that matter most, even if they take you in a new direction. So now I'm going to hand it over to Samantha for our first question break.
Okay, thank you. We have a great question from the chat. It is, I really like the case study approach, but I wonder how I can avoid unattended bias. I think my tendency would be to look for a great story. So, how do I make sure that I'm balanced?
That's a great question. Well, case studies really require you to reflect as the evaluator your role within the case study. As you are collecting data for a case study, it's supposed to reflect the voices of the participants. So, a very important step, which we plan to go over in a little bit, is about validating your case study and ensuring that those stories accurately reflect the participants that were involved in the case study. So a key part would to be ensure to validate those findings before sharing with members or participants who participated in the case study.
Okay, thank you. And we had a few additional questions, but they're going to be covered in the next section. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you.
Thanks, Samantha. So now it's time to think about data collection methods and analysis and how that might look like in your case study. To build a strong case study, you'll need to collect data from multiple sources. The goal is to develop a detailed, well rounded picture of the case. Most case studies rely heavily on qualitative methods like interviews or observations because they help uncover the how and why behind what's happening. But quantitative data can be a valuable addition, especially when you need to measure something or back up qualitative insights with numbers. So, how do you decide what methods to use? It all comes back to your evaluation questions. Choose methods that help you answer it directly and give you the depth you need. Some common methods include interviews, which are great for hearing directly from people involved and getting their perspectives. Focus groups, which allow you to explore shared experiences and group dynamics. Surveys and questionnaires allow you to collect from a broader group. They're especially useful if you want to add some quantitative findings to your case study. Document review, like looking at reports, meeting notes, or student work to provide context or track progress. And observations, which lets you see the program in action, whether that's students working in a lab or instructors leading hands-on training. One of the key strengths of case study evaluation is triangulation, gathering data from multiple sources to confirm findings and develop a more comprehensive understanding of what's happening. You're not just relying on one person's account or one type of evidence. You're looking at the case from different angles. This approach not only strengthens the credibility of your findings, but also enriches your analysis by allowing you to compare perspectives, spot patterns, and identify inconsistencies. For example, in the Tech Skills Advanced Manufacturing Initiative, you might study one student cohort's experience with hands-on learning. You could interview students and instructors, observe blast sessions, and review student work. This gives you a richer, more comprehensive understanding of how the program is working and what contributes to its success. As you evaluate the Tech Skills Initiative, it's going to be very important to consider ethical standards, especially since you're using a case study. While case studies can offer rich, detailed insights, they also demand a higher level of ethical responsibility. Evaluators must approach them with ethical care to protect participants and ensure meaningful, trustworthy findings. Be clear about the risk. Case studies often explore people's experiences in depth, which can reveal sensitive or private information, especially around personal challenges, opinions, or identities. Even when names are changed, participants may still be easily identifiable based on details like their role, setting, or unique experiences. In addition, case studies findings are shaped by the evaluator's perspective, what's included, emphasized, or left out. This makes reflexivity essential. Evaluators need to reflect on their own biases and how those might influence the story being told. Because of these risks, case studies demand a higher level of ethical responsibility. Evaluators must handle them with care to protect participants and ensure findings are both meaningful and trustworthy. Always start, sorry. When you gather personal stories, observe people at work, or share feedback that could shape the future of a program, you're in a position of influence and responsibility. Several key ethical principles are especially important when using case studies and evaluation. Let's walk through a few of the big ones. First up, informed consent. Always start by letting folks know what the evaluation is about, what kind of information you'll be collecting, how their privacy will be protected, and that participating is completely voluntary. People should feel comfortable saying no or opting out at any time. No pressure, no consequences. Next, let's talk about confidentiality and anonymity. It's your job to protect people's identities. This means removing names and any details that could give away who someone is, especially if they're sharing critical feedback or talking about something sensitive. And if true anonymity is not possible, like in a very small group, be honest and upfront so everyone understands the potential risk. Now let's talk about cultural sensitivity. When you're working across cultures, it's important to take time to understand and respect participants' values, beliefs, and traditions. For example, if you're engaging with indigenous communities, that might mean involving tribal leaders or following specific cultural protocols. One size does not fit all. Be open and adaptive. And finally, reflexivity. As an evaluator, your perspective shapes how you understand and interpret what people share with you. Take time to reflect on your own background, assumptions, and potential biases. Being aware of how your experiences influence your approach helps you stay grounded and respectful in your work. Now that we've covered the ethical foundations of using case studies, let's shift to what comes next. So, we have learned a lot through this case study evaluation, and now it's time to share our findings. But first, we need to talk about how to ensure our findings are accurate and trustworthy before sharing them more broadly. Before finalizing a case study, it's important to validate your findings. Validation includes sharing your findings with participants and asking for their feedback. This step helps to ensure that your findings accurately reflect the stories of the participants and helps to build credibility and strengthen trust with both participants and other interest holders. Validation helps ensure accuracy by confirming your data and conclusions are correct. It supports representation by checking that your findings reflect people's real experiences. And it ensures your insights are meaningful by making sure they're actually useful to those who matter. When validating a case study, it's important to make sure the right people are part of the process. Focus on those who are most affected by the findings and the ones who can really speak to whether the story rings true. Start with the primary participants, the people you interviewed or observed. They can tell you if your findings feel real and accurate. Next, loop in project interest holders like project staff, funders, or administrators. They can help add context and point out anything you might have missed. And finally, don't forget about the evaluation team. Their input helps make sure your methods and interpretations hold up. Altogether, these voices help make your case study stronger, more trustworthy, and more useful. After we've gathered feedback, there are 3 steps to wrap up and finalize the case studies. First, we make revisions where they're needed. We use the feedback to clarify or improve the findings. For example, if a participant points out that their quote was a little off, we update it to reflect their exact words. Next, we document our decisions. It's important to keep track of what we changed or didn't and why. Let's say an interest holder disagrees with the finding, but our data supports it. We might keep it, but also include their perspective in a footnote. That way, we're transparent about differing views. Finally, we note the validation process in the final report. Even just a short sentence like Findings were validated with participants for accuracy can go a long way. It shows we took the care with the process and that we value interest holder input. Remember, validation isn't just checking a box, it's about building trust. So if a funder asks, how do you know this is accurate? We can point to our notes and say, here's how we listened and acted on feedback. That shows thoughtfulness, credibility, and respect for everyone involved. All right, it's time for our second chat question. Thinking about the tech skills case study we've been exploring, what are some effective ways you might communicate the evaluation findings with different audiences, like students, faculty, industry partners, or funders? Drop your ideas in the chat. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Some good things in the chat included PowerPoints. That's a nice way to show your findings to different groups. One pagers. Oh, yeah, that's another good idea. Boarding, yeah. Well, thank you all for sharing. I'm going to hand it over to Samantha for a quick question break.
Okay, thank you, Brianna. All right, so our first question. Usually developmental evaluation prefers, at least by the project team, doing a success story as a case study. However, attribution is difficult to trace. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I would like to start that attribution is hard to chase for all evaluation. However, case study methodologies really try to focus on understanding the experiences of a specific case. With that being said, if you're looking to really look at attribution, that a case study methodology may not be the most appropriate to look at that.
Okay, thank you. And our last question for this break. I've used a version of case studies as a way to present data. We found three major trajectories. Here are three cases that illustrate those. How is this different from using case studies as an evaluation method?
I think the biggest difference is when you decide to use case studies for a methodology, it's an intentional decision before you start the evaluation. So it shapes your processes throughout the evaluation, for example, including different interest holders in the interpretation of the data, having this nuanced understanding of the case. Some of that is not always captured when you're just using case studies as a way to present data that you may have already previously collected. Well, thanks. So I think that sums up our question break, right, Samantha? And so we'll go ahead and dive back in. So now you've validated your findings. Great work. Now it's time to start thinking about our report. Before we dive into writing, let's go over what sections to include and how a case study report is different from a traditional evaluation report. Here we have a basic outline of what a traditional evaluation report looks like. So we have our introduction, our methodology, our findings, and our conclusion. What makes a case study report different is the added section, an introduction to the case. This is where you describe the case you're focusing on. You'll want to give background information that might include things like historical context, geographic setting, or industry trends, whatever really helps readers understand the bigger picture. Think of it like zooming in with a camera, starting wide, then focusing in. Begin with the general context and then move into the specific program, group, or issues you're exploring. For example, in our tech skills program case study, we may start describing the case by introducing Summit Valley Community College. Then we talk about tech skills. Oh, sorry. Then we talk about SVCC's leadership and support for STEM learning. Next, we'll talk about Tech Skills Initiative at Summit Valley, introducing the project, and finally, we'll introduce the Spring 2025 Initiative student cohort. That's the group that we're really focusing on. So this structure helps the readers follow the story from the big picture, the SVCC, to the more close-up picture, the Spring 2025 Tech Skills Initiative student cohort. So they're grounded in both the context and the case. When writing a case study, we want to structure it with a narrative arc, like a story. This means highlighting the challenge, the action, and the resolution. Starting at the beginning, set the scene, introduce the context and the key players. In the middle, describing the challenges, actions, and decisions. And at the end, sharing the outcomes, turning points, and any reflections. Now let's talk about point of view. You can write in third person, for example, the team faced a challenge, which gives an objective tone. Or you might use person plural. We notice, for example, especially if the evaluator is part of the story. It's important to just be consistent. If you do switch perspectives, make sure it's on purpose, like in a quote or a reflection. Here is an example of using first person plural for a more collaborative voice. I will stop to give you a moment to read. Notice the words and phrases that make it feel like a shared experience, like in our evaluation or we prioritize. That's what really helps bring the story to life. Now, a big tip is show, don't just tell. Use vivid, concrete examples to bring abstract ideas down to earth. Include moments that evoke emotion or give insight. Even small details like she paused before answering can make a big impact. These kinds of moments help people really connect with the findings. Visuals are also helpful. Use charts, tables, or graphs to spotlight key data. And don't forget quotes. They bring your findings to life. So let's look at an example. In this story, we describe how Dr. Winston, part of the Tech Skills Initiative, recruited students directly from his junior level classes. He made the experience accessible with hands-on research opportunities and flexible hours. This approach helped him connect with high-performing students early on. He shared that while he selects students based on merit, attracting a more diverse group remains a challenge. Now we bring in Dr. Winston's actual words. This is where his voice really shines through. Instead of summarizing, we let him speak for himself. And that makes the insights feel more real and powerful. Now that we've validated our case and understand the writing considerations needed for structuring our report, it's time to share. You'll likely be sharing it with a wide range of folks, like participants, faculty, and project team, maybe even funders. So think about how to tailor your message for each group, what matters most to them, and what format will work best. With that said, even the best presentations can fall flat if your audience tunes out. So how you share your findings really matters. When reporting in case studies, it's important to consider your audience. Think about their interests and needs and tailor your presentations to meet them. Ask yourself, what are their top priorities or concerns? Is it outcomes, cost, equity, efficiency, sustainability? Then think about what information would be most relevant or beneficial for them to understand. You may consider highlighting insights, data, or stories that support their goals or help fill knowledge gaps. It will also be important to understand how your message can influence their next steps, whether that's making decisions, setting priorities, or planning future work. Here's a quick summary of key questions to help you shape your message effectively. All right, let's take the tech skills case as an example. For students, their top priorities might include building practical job ready skills, finishing the program on time, and managing school alongside work or family. They'll probably care most about things like how hands on experiences connect to real world jobs, available career pathways, and the support services that can help them succeed. And how will they use the information to decide whether to stay in or complete the program, to choose a career path or specialization, or to access tutoring, advising, or other supports? There are a lot of ways to present your case studies. Let's walk through a few. One option is a presentation party. These are informal gatherings where you invite participants to hear your key findings in a relaxed social setting. It's a great way to spark conversation without asking everyone to read the whole report ahead of time. This works especially well for participants like students who might prefer social interactive ways to learn, feel more comfortable asking questions in casual spaces, or just don't have the time to read a full written report. Another option is to share findings at program events or summits. These events bring together project leaders, faculty, participants, and funders. They're usually more formal and might include presentations, panels, or group sessions. This format is great for engaging people who weren't directly involved in the case, like funders or institutional leaders, because it gives a clear overview of outcomes, encourages big picture conversations, and fits into existing events, which makes it easier for folks to attend. You can also host a case study debrief. These are often small, invite only discussions, usually with 4 to 8 people who are deeply invested in the project. Think faculty, project staff, or leaders closely involved in the case. Debriefs aren't presentations, they're conversations. Everyone reads the report ahead of time so the group can dig into the findings, talk through implications, and brainstorm next steps. They're great for gathering nuanced feedback, refining recommendations, and supporting collaborative planning. And you don't have to cover everything in one session. You can hold multiple debriefs focused on different themes in the report. And finally, don't underestimate the power of email. This is a simple yet efficient way to share key findings with a broader audience. It works well for summary updates and lets people engage on their own time. So, whether it's a party, a summit, a small group, or an email, it's important to choose the format that best fits your audience and your goals. Wow, we've covered a lot of ground on case studies today. And as we wrap up, let's take a quick moment to look back at the key takeaways. This will help us connect the dots and make sure the big ideas really stick. Today, we walked through what it takes to build a strong case study. We started by thinking about how to choose your case strategically, making sure it really lines up with your evaluation goals. From there, we talked about crafting focused case study evaluation questions that help you dig into the how and why behind what's going on. Then we moved into data collection, highlighting the value of using different methods to bring in a range of perspectives and paint a fuller picture. We also spent time on ethical care, recognizing how important it is, especially when you're working closely with people and communities. And finally, we closed out with reporting, how to pull it all together into a clear, compelling story that's grounded in evidence. As you start to think about how to use case studies in your own evaluation work, remember the real power of a case study isn't just in the insights it provides, but in how those insights lead to meaningful change. When you return to your practice, think about where case studies could help unpack complex challenges in your current evaluations. Look for ways to lift up participant voices through rich, authentic storytelling. Try out creative visualizations to make your findings more engaging and accessible. And make space for reflection and conversation when sharing your results. Case studies can bring evaluations to life. They help us understand what's happening on the ground, capture nuance, and support learning that sticks. If you have any questions about anything we've covered, now's a great time to ask. Samantha, over to you for our final question break.
Oh, yes, we actually have one final question in the chat here. The question is, should we validate our findings with every participant, or can we validate it with just a group of participants?
That is a great question. I think the goal is to always try to validate the findings with the participants who are directly involved in the case. However, we do know that that doesn't always isn't as easy as it sounds. So, as the evaluator or the person who is conducting the case study for evaluation, it will be important to have several touch points or try to reach out to them. Um, that's when you could say, like, maybe they couldn't make it to the presentation party, so maybe you can share it via email, because sometimes that can be more accessible. So it should be a priority to try to validate the case study with everyone who was involved.
Okay, thank you so much. Mentioning email is a perfect segue here to our closing. A link to our feedback survey will be emailed to you with this recording. We really value your input, and we do use it to inform future webinars and evaluation training activities that we do. I also want to let you know, if you are interested in continuing this conversation, we are going to be holding a community conversation on June 24th. So that will carry on this conversation in a more casual setting with other members of the ATE community. And so I'll be sure to include a reminder on that date and time, as well as the registration link in that follow-up email. You'll receive this in a few days, and we want to thank you so much for your patience with technical difficulties and for registering for and attending this webinar. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us, and you can always access our website at any time for more helpful resources and tips for your evaluation practice. Thank you all so much for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.